Good evening and welcome to Admin Chat. This evening we are covering the topic Stepping into Leadership, a guide to effectively supporting your team through coronavirus. I'm Lucy Brazier, I'm the CEO of Marcham Publishing, and I absolutely passionately felt that this evening it was important that I stepped up myself into leadership to try and help. You might notice my voice is a little bit croaky. I want to reassure you I haven't got the virus myself. I've just been talking to so many of you over the last couple of days. I seem to have been 24/7, and I know how much worry there is out there. So I thought I should probably put together some kind of guide as to how you can help and how you can make sure that you're supporting in the best possible way through this whole thing. So this is me, this is the magazine. I published this magazine and have done for 10 years. I spent an enormous amount of time traveling the world and talking to people about the way that the profession is going and what the role is and how it's developing. But this is a situation like absolutely no other. I do have a really good handle, though, on what has been happening within the profession and what your strengths are, and why this is a time where assistants are desperately, desperately needed. There has never been a more important time to have the assistant role at the heart of a business, and I'm going to explain to you a little bit about why that is. You know, there is no normal at the moment. All of us are in a situation where, to one extent and another, there is somewhat of a meltdown. This picture is of my beautiful home in Javier in Spain, which is where I was expecting to be at this point. We were due to move there any second. On Saturday, we packed up our entire house into a van and off it went, only to discover that in the evening, Spain went into lockdown and we can no longer get there. We are in London. We have 4 plates, 4 knives and forks, mattresses on the floor, and we're due to be out of here on the latest on the 10th of April. And currently we don't have anywhere to live after that. But you know what? I keep saying to people, as long as we get through this and we all come out the other end of it alive, then the rest of it is problem solving. And yes, I would love to be in Spain in the sunshine, but right now they're locked down. The army is patrolling the streets and stopping people from going out. There are queues for the supermarket, as there are here in England as well. And there's a lot of uncertainty here too. I know there's talk of the possibility that tomorrow London will also go into lockdown, and that makes for a lot of angst. But in the middle of all that, there is a great need for calm amongst the chaos, and that's something that assistants excel at. So let me ask you some questions before we really get going. The first is, what are your professional ambitions? And that might seem weird in this situation where everything is so turned upside down, and there isn't any precedent for this situation. That's part of the problem. Nobody knows where it's heading. But what I do know is that, very much like the Rudyard Kipling poem, if you can keep your head whilst all about you are losing theirs, you are set to be looked upon as somebody who is a superstar within your business. The second question is, what are your current boundaries and authority? What are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? Because the rules just changed absolutely totally, and there's stuff that you know how to do that nobody else in the business does, and I'm going to talk to you about that a bit in a minute, but it gives you opportunity to change the things that you're involved with. What are your current strengths? Some of you are absolutely incredible at detail. Some of you are amazing at process. Most of you are fantastic at emotional intelligence, and the communication piece is so strong. These are all skills that will come to the fore with this coronavirus epidemic. Now, the next question is a difficult one. How much do you know about your business? Because that also just changed overnight also. Do you know what the strategy is for your business to work through this period in time? How are you going to be able to support that? Do you know what they're aiming to do? It could just be that they're looking to survive as a business, and how can you contribute to that? But if that isn't the case and they're looking at longer term, how they get everybody through it unscathed, can you support that? Are you clear about how you can help? I'm going to help you with that. Some of you who've heard me speak before will have seen this slide before, but never has it been so applicable. We really don't like change, do we? And the reason we don't like change is because it makes us feel like we're out of control. I think for all of us at the moment, the change is overwhelming. And mainly that's a little bit because it's like we've taken a pack of playing cards and thrown them up in the air. Nobody knows quite where they're going to land. This whole profession was in an acute state of change before we got to this whole epidemic. It was in a situation where 10 years ago you'd stepped up to become the new middle management and that wasn't totally recognized yet. We're in a period where AI and technology is coming to the fore and very much all that fast-paced stuff is going. But now it's just into the unknown. And really, assistants are going to be needing to step up like never before to make sure that they're covering the things that they are so exceptional at. This next hour, whilst I'm talking to you about what is happening, there may be some things where you think, oh my word, I really don't know whether I can do that or not. But believe me, the ones of you that can are going to position yourselves past this epidemic as being reliable leaders within your companies, and you will be seen as true strategic business partners. So think about yourself like this block of ice. And if you were to change the shape of a block of ice, you would first of all melt it and then you would refreeze it. And that takes time. So I want you to give yourself time to get used to the idea. You know, I've lived through two recessions as an independent. And on both of those occasions, it was a little bit like when somebody dies. There's a period of grieving where we're not quite sure what's happening. And it's a little bit kind of, what just happened there? After that settles down a little bit, everybody gets into a new way of doing things, and it isn't the same, but it's workable. So just give yourself time. Here is the thing. A ship in port is safe, but that isn't what ships are built to do. And you know, all of you assistants out there that are at any kind of top level are just so skilled at the things that businesses are going to be crying out for. They're not going to get through this without you. It really is time to step up and to take control and to find your voice. And you need to embrace that opportunity to do so. Here are the things which I found online told me make a great leader. Look at them. So many of them apply to you, and especially if you apply them to this situation. You have integrity. You're very good at setting clear goals. You always lead by example. Most of you, even if you don't have vision yourself, are able to recognize your executive's vision and follow that. Your communication skills are exceptional. You expect for things to be right, to be the best they can be. Obviously, you offer support and encouragement to your people within the business. And in this situation, you're going to need to be nurturing people and helping them and underpinning what they're doing and stopping them from panicking. You will be doing more stimulating work. And the reason you'll be doing more stimulating work is because you're going to be absolutely at the heart of pulling this together to make sure businesses continue. I know you're always focused on your teams and what their interests and their needs are. That's part of being a servant leader. And when I talk about being a servant leader, I'm not being derogatory. I would count myself as a servant leader. What I mean by that is somebody that is there to make sure that everybody else gets home safely and that you are ensuring that your executive and the rest of your team are able to survive this. And you are key to that. So from that point of view, your team is going to look on you as an inspiration and a source of calm and a source of order, which is what business desperately needs at the moment. Here's the thing. It's a time to bring order to the chaos, and that is your superpower. That's what you are all so amazing at. When I sit and I talk to you and I get you to do psychometric testing systems, which I'll talk to you about in a minute, the thing that always happens when you do those is that the process and the detail stuff comes out on top, and your ability to remain calm and collected and to think your way through the problem is absolutely key. Let's talk about that psychometric testing system for a second then. Some of you will know it, some of you won't. Meredith Belbin was a psychiatrist who put together a psychometric test which looked at how people sat together within teams and what their skill sets were. He said that there were 8 different kinds of people within a team, and some businesses take it so seriously that if one strand leaves, they will only employ for that particular strand. Now, the reason I find this so interesting is because assistants sit in 3 very distinct categories, and executives on the whole sit in 3 totally different categories. So your executives are going to sit on the whole in plant, in shaper, and in resource investigator. Let me explain those. So your shapers are the ones who they have no patience for anything. They see the big picture. It's be quick, be fast, be done, get out. And especially in a situation like now, they will be making decisions at breakneck speed. What they don't do in any way, shape, or form is A, communicate properly, or look at the detail. The second type is the plant. Now, your plants are wonderful at coming up with new processes, new products, that sort of thing, but their communication skills are also awful. You know, the type of people who should be locked in a high tower because they can't make their point to the people that they're working with. And then the third type of person is the resource investigator. And the resource investigators are the ones who are great leaders. They're driving everything forward. Everybody will follow them to the ends of the earth, but they really can't complete or finish anything if their life depends on it. And you know, all 3 different types of leaders are just so awful at process. I know that Matthew, who is my assistant, when I say I've had an amazing idea, he will go pale because he knows that he's going to have to be the one to implement it and to make it happen. And it isn't that I don't want to do the process, it's just that I find it incredibly difficult to think in that way. This is something that is really going to be needed in this time of crisis. People who can think through step by step exactly how it's going to work in minute detail, because so many of the leaders are going to be in meetings throwing ideas around and they won't have time to sit down or the ability, actually. So the assistants then sit in 3 categories. Please excuse me a minute, I need to cough. Okay. I might do that a couple of times, and that's another lesson for later on, which is that in these times where you're working from home, sometimes you might have people interrupt, or animals, or children, or you might need to cough, or any of that stuff. And I think we're just going to have to go with it. It's the new normal. So then, let's look at you guys. Let's look at the 3 categories that you fall into. The first is the implementer, and the implementer is exactly what I've just talked about. It's the people that make the things happen. They take the idea, they get it step by step, and they lay out the process so that everybody knows exactly how it's going to work. Then you have the completer finishers, and the completer finishers dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure that the detail is there. And again, in this situation, you know, there are employees relying on you to look at this from every angle and to look at the way that it's going to work. And finally, assistants tend to sit in team worker, and the team workers are the ones who are exceptional at making sure that the team is okay and smoothing things over and making sure the communication is done properly and making sure that everybody gets home safely. So I hope you can see that the 2 roles are totally different, the assistant and the executive, and especially in this situation, you're going to take on very, very different roles. There isn't going to be a whole heap of overlap, but both are equally necessary. And I would say that without your skills, businesses at this point are likely to fall apart. You're going to need to step up. If you're wondering whether you really are able to be a leader, look at this quote from Kenneth Blanchard. If you don't know who Ken Blanchard is, he's the guy who wrote the 1 Minute Manager books, which are phenomenal. You should really go read them. He says the key to successful leadership today is influence, not authority. And we know how influential all of you are. Here's the thing. It's not who you think you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. And whether you think you can or you can't, you're probably right. Business is relying on you at this point to step up and lead. You really, really need to take hold of it and do it. If you don't think that that's who you are, you won't. But if you don't, you are probably going to be one of the assistants that is let go. We are in an absolute crisis, and business needs people who can step up and do what they need to do. And it isn't a time to be sitting there and waiting to be told what to do. You need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and talking to the businesses about what it is that they need and how you can help them to do that. What really matters most is how you see yourself. This is really, really important. And I love this slide because, quite apart from this guy's really tragic haircut, you can't tell which of these is the assistant and which one is the executive. And that's exactly how it should be at this point in time. You should be working together using the two different skill sets to make sure that you are stepping up to do what's right for the business. And you really need to remember that they are not the expert at being the assistant, you are. Most executives don't get management training until they are an average of 42 years old. So that's a whole heap of executives wandering around without a clue what they're doing. Especially in this situation, you need to be training them how to use you properly so that they can get on with the things that they need to do as executives to make sure that the business survives whilst you pick up the detail stuff. It might take a few days, a few weeks even, to work through what that looks like. But everything at this point has to be reimagined so that you are really operating on the things only that are your core skill sets so that the business gets the best out of both of you. It's really important to remember that you're not employed by your executive, you're employed by your business to make sure that your executive is the very best that they can possibly be. And in this situation, that is absolutely critical. It isn't the time for sitting there thinking, I'm not sure whether this is the right thing, I'm not sure whether this is my place. This is the time to put your ideas forward, to talk about how processes might work, to talk about how you can truly be of assistance. Let's start then by talking about how you can organise yourself from home, because I know a great deal of you have been asked to work from home, and for some of you, it's the very first time that you've done that. Matthew and I have worked separately and together, but most recently, for almost the last year now, he has lived in Southampton, which is about an hour away from me, and I live in Twickenham, and the two of us work together, but separately. And when people ask me whether it's possible for an EA to really work with their executive when they're working from home properly, I say absolutely. I couldn't ask for a better assistant than Matthew, and he is proactive and drives things forward, and we just communicate a lot. So the first thing that I would say is to find a space. Find a space where ideally, you're not going to get interrupted, and where there is daylight and where there's room to lay things out. Somewhere where you are going to be comfortable and you're not going to have people walking in and out all day asking you questions. Now, there are pros and cons to working from home. Let's have a look at the cons first, shall we? Because then we can do the bad news and then the good news, which is always a better order. I think the first con is that you can feel horribly isolated. I think that sometimes, when we are working from home, we feel like we're not seeing anybody, especially during this epidemic, because we're not able to see colleagues, we're not allowed to hug each other, we're not allowed to shake hands. That can just be horrible. And we always worry that, if we're working from home, we're going to feel very cut off. I think having family, if we have family at home, can be a problem, especially here in the UK right now where they've shut all the schools. You've got parents who are at home with their children. The children are caged up. They're not wanting to be so. They want to be outside and playing or at school, and they're not allowed to. So you have parents who are trying to homeschool their children and work at the same time. Then there are distractions. You get bored with doing what you're doing and you get up and decide to put washing on, or, maybe you're going to go and have a shower now, or maybe you might phone somebody or whatever it is. And keeping an eye on the time, it's very easy when you're at home, I know it, to work all the hours God sends to try and get stuff finished. I have been known to be sat here at my desk at 7 o'clock in the morning and not finished till 11 o'clock at night when I have a project on. But that isn't sustainable, especially not if you're in a stressful situation. And finally, IT. I think IT can be a huge problem if you're working from home. It depends whether you've got a laptop, it depends how your system operates at home. Do you have Office 365, which will make life a lot easier. You have all the systems and things that you need in order to do what you need to do. And then, here are the pros. You don't have the commute. I found that when I started working from home, I lost 4 hours of traveling a day. I got 4 hours of my life back and I was able to use it for the good of the business. Having my family around me was in some ways absolutely wonderful. And once you work out who's going to do what and when, so that there is some kind of schedule in place, then that becomes far, far easier. And yes, you can have distractions, but actually being able to get up and put washing on or put dinner on halfway through the day or the afternoon or whatever can mean that you have a far better work-life balance in some ways because you're not coming in late at night absolutely exhausted and then having to start again. Time-wise, if you work it properly, you can get the work done in far less time than you do in the office. If you've organised your desk properly, you've organised how people come and talk to you, you make sure that you've got everything worked out in a proper timeline, you can really get a whole heap more done than you would do in the office. And then there's your home comforts. It's nice to have the coffee or the tea you like and to be in familiar surroundings and maybe be able to wear something a little more comfortable or not put it on makeup or so on. It's a good thing you can't see me today. I have to tell you, I'm not looking at my sparkling best. And having said that, it's one of the joys of working from home is that if I don't have any appointments, I can just be me. So I think really sitting and working out this schedule is absolutely key. You want to make sure you've got a balance, and especially if you're at home, making sure that you know when you're going to start in the morning and you get into a regular routine is really important. For me, I wake up every morning. I always, first thing in the morning, go through on LinkedIn anybody who has got a new job and say to them, congratulations on your new job. I think it's a really positive way to start the day. After that, I will look at some emails and then see what is urgent. After that, I'll get out of bed and go and have my shower. And I'm usually at my desk for about 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning. Then I will work through. At about 11 o'clock, I will get up and I will move around a bit. I will go and get myself a cup of tea. I might put some washing on. I'll come back again half an hour later. I'll work through till about 1. And usually Duncan, my husband, and I sit down and we have lunch at that point. And then I go back to work in the afternoon. Maybe about 3, he'll bring me a cup of tea and I'll stop and I'll chat to him. The kids tend to come in from work at about 5, 6 o'clock and I chat to them a bit. And then maybe in the evening, I do a little bit more work unless I'm on a major project. But my day is broken up. One of the greatest things I got this year for Christmas was my Fitbit because it reminds me that I can get up after an hour. It bleeps on my wrist if I haven't done 250 steps. They say that sitting is as dangerous as smoking. And really, we need to remind ourselves, especially if we're at home, that we need to get up and move around. I know that before I got my Fitbit, and I was only relying on my phone to tell me how much exercise I'd done. There were days where I would get to the end of the day and look at my phone, and I would have done maybe 500 steps in a day. It's not enough. We need to build in time for exercise for our mental health as well as everything else. And then I love this system. This has totally revolutionized the way that I do things. And here is your link. But I think if you just go to Harvard Business Review and you put in time boxing, the article will probably come up. But it was wonderful. It's something that we've been doing for years actually in offices, but Harvard Business Review has just reintroduced it as a totally new thing. So it's breaking down your days to make sure that you know what you're doing. I used to have a to-do list and I would always be really stressed. I'd get to the end of the day and I wouldn't have made my way through it. I still have a to-do list, but I look at it first thing in the morning and I time box what I'm going to do today. So that if I get to the end of today and I haven't done all the things I need to do, I will have a gap the next day where I can slot it so that I don't get behind in what I'm meant to be doing. It just keeps me sane. It means that I know that I've achieved today what I really, really need to achieve. And I'm looking at what I have achieved as opposed to what I haven't, which is what you do if you're looking at your to-do list. Especially if you're at home, you want the endorphins. You want to be able to pat yourself on the back at the end of the day and go, I really achieved something today. Staying connected. I asked on Facebook what are the things that most of you are using, and here is your list. So Office 365, including Teams, Microsoft Teams. I had never used that before. I saw a brilliant presentation on that from Vicky Evans last week in South Africa. But I know that all four of these people, Vicky Evans, Neil Malik, Corinne Hoisington, and Melissa Esquibel, all train fantastically on that. Skype and Zoom both allow you to meet with lots of people. WhatsApp, my team has a WhatsApp group and we're forever sending each other things. But take a look at these. I don't know which one your business will use, but if you are unsure about how to use any of them, then please reach out to me because I will put you in touch with these people and I'm sure they will be able to talk you through how to use it. All of the trainers that we work with are particularly keen to be of help to you at this point and to make sure that you have what you need to continue to do your jobs properly. Here is some places that you can go and do research into other things that maybe you use in your business in terms of technology or apps or whatever that will be helpful in this time of crisis. It's really useful to become the go-to person. And you know, YouTube is a wonderful thing. If there's something that is out there that you think that maybe you could use, but you're not sure about it, go look it up in there. Our magazine, the website is full of articles. The whole archive from the last 9 years is up there and it's searchable by topic and by author, and you can go and look for what you need. Inc.com and Harvard Business Review, in the same way, are always looking at new ways to do things, and I'm sure over this crisis we'll be writing plenty about that. So once you have found things that could be useful, maybe offer to help train them, help other people within the business how to train them. That also goes for things like, you know, Microsoft Teams and Skype and Zoom and the other things we mentioned on the last page, you know, Office 365. Help to train other people on them because if they're working from home, they're going to be having 40 fits as to how they use it. An admin chat. Obviously, you found this, so you may be looking at this on social media, but there is a page which you can see here on YouTube, which is our channel. We now have over 60 admin chats up there, and they are all free training, freely accessible from some of the top trainers in the world. You can go in and give yourself training on pretty much anything you want. Go take a look. And then I would urge you, this is our Facebook group. You can see at the top the address. I will have to accept you into that group, but we're now almost 8,000 people from all over the world. And especially this last week, it's so come into its own. People are sharing tips and hints and asking questions and just generally bolstering each other up. It's become a really go-to community. And there's humour in there too, you know, there are things that people are sharing just to keep the levity up a little bit. It's also serious at the moment, but we're also sharing facts and clarifying things, and the trainers are on there a lot helping out as well. So maybe go join that because we will really be able to help you if you have questions. And then this morning, lovely Dinah Liversidge, who is one of our trainers, relaunched Breakfast Club right back at the beginning of Twitter. She started Breakfast Club, which was one of the very first Twitter chats out there. And the idea was that every morning at 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock UK time, uh, business leaders and other people who worked in business would be able to meet just to chat and to socialize a bit and to ask questions and so on and so forth. And it started again this morning. So if you want to go and become part of that, then tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock UK time, if you go to Twitter and you search for hashtag the Breakfast Club, hashtag the Breakfast Club, you'll be able to find all the people who are online and chat with them. And at the moment, we so need community. It's so important to be encouraging each other and making sure we're all right. And here's Diana Brandl, our dear friend from Germany. She came through this week with this fantastic list, the ultimate list of virtual team technology tools. And this list, which is at this website, has a list of around 60 technology tools that you can use to manage your virtual team. So go take a look at that because it's really well worth a look. All sorts of different technologies and categorized. And do you remember this guy? This guy with the kids in the background who was trying to do a business meeting, who was trying to do a news report. He made me laugh so much at the time, but my point is this. We're all going to be doing virtual meetings, Everybody knows at the moment that we have kids at home. We're all working from home. We've all got children. We've got animals. We've got partners. Sometimes the partners are the worst. And what I would say to you is don't pretend they're not there. Just I think we're going to have to accept it. It is going to become the new normal, that we just have to understand that things aren't always going to be perfect. And it doesn't mean that we're not committed to the work. It just means that we're all doing our best to see ourselves through this crisis. There has never been a more important time to find your voice. It's no good sitting back anymore and thinking, well, they must know what they're doing. As Bonnie Lowe Craman quite often says, assistants sometimes know better. And in these situations, especially when it comes to process and the way to do things, you really do know better. So don't be scared to say, I've got a different idea on that. I've got a different way we could do that. I've got a piece of technology that would make that easier. I think you're overcomplicating that. They need it. Find your voice and tell them. Here's the thing, look, 40% of productivity is directly connected to communication, and communication has never been more important. Our productivity has to be up if we're going to survive. So you need to communicate clearly with your executive, and you need to communicate clearly with your team as to exactly what it is that you're needing and exactly how you think things should work. Your circle of influence starts with you, and it isn't just about your skills, it's about all these other things. So what you ask and how you do that, what your values are, how you are behaving in terms of actions and behaviors, whether you're person-centered, what your sensitivity is like, what are your attitudes to things, what your personal qualities, your knowledge awareness. Are you open to learning because you're going to need to be? Things are changing so fast. Are you self-aware? What's your body language saying to people? And almost most importantly, I think here is, are you curious? You need to be curious. The best assistants are always asking questions. And right now, you need to be a sounding board for your executives so that if they're telling you something, you're asking the questions that they need in order to think that stuff through. We did a survey with Avery 2 years ago, and we were looking at emotional intelligence and IQ. Now, when it came to IQ, we compared you to other office workers, and we discovered that you had the same IQ or similar. But when it came to EQ or emotional intelligence, you had 18% on average more than anybody else in your offices. This comes into play hugely right now. What it means is that you're able to see if people are hurting, if people are angry, how people are reacting. And it's never become more important than now for you to be communicating that to other people within the business and to be helping to try and make sure that the team is kept on an even keel and kept calm and that they understand what's happening because you're communicating with them properly. Look at this. In terms of communication, 55% is body language, 38% is tone, and only 7% is words. So a word of caution, it might be easier to send emails, but believe me, in this time of um, no face-to-face communication and isolation, it becomes even more important to either pick up the phone or to do a face-to-face meeting on Skype or Zoom or something similar, because people need to see your face. They need to see what your body language is. There is enough confusion and worry and stress without people second guessing what the person on the other end of the phone or the email means. We need to be able to talk to each other and look each other in the whites of the eyes. So where possible, set up meetings where we can see what people's faces and bodies are doing. So where do you start then? Because everything just changed. You need to redefine the boundaries of your role and what you're going to be responsible for. Then you need to communicate what responsibilities you would like to take on to your executive and be very clear about what you're willing to take off their plate so that they can get on with the business of disaster recovery and making sure that they're managing this crisis. Structured communication has never been more important. Daily meetings, at least, but keep talking to each other, keep working out where you are with your meetings and with the projects you've been given to do, and make sure you're developing really clear expectations so everybody knows exactly where they stand and how things are going to progress and what you're capable of. And so what you need to talk to them about are ideas where you feel you can increase value. Think about the things that you are amazing at and think about where you're really going to be able to add value at this point to your business. Make it clear what's in it for them and for the company. However much they love you, what they're really interested in is what it's going to do for the business, especially at the moment. So don't talk about what it's going to do for you, talk about what's in it for them and the company. Talk to them about giving you genuine and honest feedback. Make sure you keep touch points going so that if you're doing something new, you're able to say, this is what I've done, what did you think? And don't be upset if they say they don't feel that it's something that they think's working. Ask your executive for their ideas and for their support. You know, the two of you are working together, you're in partnership. You need to make sure that they give their input as well. And then if all else fails, negotiate trial periods. Say, can we try it this way for a couple of weeks? Usually they're happy to do that, even if they don't really feel that it's something they particularly want to do long term. If you know it's going to work and they're digging their heels in, ask if you can try it for a week or whatever, just to see how it works. Because the one thing that I do know about a period of time like this is that you have to jump in with both feet, see what works, and if it doesn't work, you try, you fail, and you adjust quickly. It's the way we get through stuff in business. And then be clear, be really clear in those expectations. What I want you to do is to be really explicit, not implicit, because assumption is a really, really dangerous thing. If you assume that they understand what you're talking about, you are going to end up in a whole heap of trouble. So ask for their opinion, listen and clarify what it is that you're going to do. Make sure that you are setting smart goals here, yes? So set really solid timelines, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time bound. What are the expected outcomes? What do they want specifically from you? Make sure everybody understands exactly what it is that you're doing and exactly what it is that they're doing and where it meets in the middle. Because you've got your world you're going to be operating, they're going to be operating in their world, and hopefully the two of you will meet in the middle and it'll make one perfect employee, which is what the executive which is what your business is employing you to do, to make your executive exceptional. And then moving forward from that, you've got to make sure you've got communication and information flows. This is going to really require planning and confidence. You've got to make sure that you are happy with saying the way that you want things to be and happy taking away and planning how you want systems and processes to work. So put together structured ideas, but make sure that you're flexible so that if they decide it isn't the way they want to work, that it is an effective way for both of you. Make sure you're listening to feedback. Maybe they don't want to do things quite the way that you do, and make sure that you're adaptable and enthusiastic. Understanding the business right now has never been more important. I've been bleating on for the last 2 years about the fact that now is the time to really get to understand your business. Knowing isn't understanding. There's a great difference between knowing and understanding. And I think most assistants know an awful lot about their business without really understanding it. What are the priorities right now? What is their plan? What are they trying to achieve? Is it just keeping the staff safe? Is it about making sure that you survive as a business? Is it about putting things in place so that the customers feel supported? What are your priorities? Ask the questions. What is the strategy? What does the rest of this year look like if they get to the end of the year and they think that they have done it right? You need to be on board and understand that stuff so that you can support at the right level. The other thing that I would be asking your executive is what their pain points are. What are the things right now that they really wish you would take off their hands? What are the things that they're worried about? Are there things that you can help them with? Because believe me, if you are under pressure, they are under a whole heap more pressure. So see how well you can support them. And here's another lady that if you don't know her, you really ought to get to know her. Julie Perrine from All Things Admin, there's her website. She is the queen of procedures, and processes I keep talking about are absolutely the skill sets that are needed right now. And if you're thinking, what is she talking about? Do you have a disaster plan? Where does the business need to introduce new procedures? What new processes does the business need right now? Has your business done a risk analysis? Are you keeping your people safe? Do they know what they're able to do and what they're not able to do, and what the company policy is on that? Are they aware of how to protect themselves from this virus? What's happening to your people about annual leave? Are you making sure if they're still in the office that everything is being kept clean? If they are at home, how are they making sure that their office equipment is clean? Are you training them on the systems that they need? Systems in as far as technology and so on. How are you going to be covering sickness? Are you making sure that with sickness you are keeping notes and you are taking down when people are off sick so that later on everybody knows how that's going to work? What's going to happen with holidays or vacation? How will your staff juggle work and children? Is there any support there for that? And if they aren't able to work as many hours, will you be looking at flexi time? What are the policies around what they need? What are the policies around in your business that will need amending that are there at the moment? And then critically, what happens if people are let go? There are so many things to be thought through, and sometimes those things take a back seat while more immediate things come up. But you can be getting on with doing that stuff, and Julie has templates for most of that stuff on our All Things Admin website. Go take a look, it's phenomenal. Thank goodness, I'm so hoping not, but it's a reality, and I know it's a reality. We have got people writing to us left, right, and centre to say, what do they do now? Because they've suddenly been made unemployed and let go. I don't know whether you know, but one of the things that we do is that if somebody doesn't have work, we will allow them usually for 3 months to have free access to our website so they can keep their skills up to date. We've extended that to 6 months. So if you suddenly find yourself in a situation where you don't have a job in this period of time, please, please, please contact us. We're also working with various recruitment agencies to talk to them about how they can support you. So please reach out. Our lady that looks after this is a lady called Jenny Churcher, and you can write to her at subscriptions@executivesecretary.com. That's subscriptions@executivesecretary.com, and she will come back to you with information as to how you can get online and how you can sign up for some of the resources we've got for people who suddenly let go. This is the thing, right? The rules have totally changed overnight. None of us know what's going to happen, but the thing that's absolutely clear is it's not time to be woolly. It's not time to be sitting back and hoping everybody else will do it. You shall, you will, and we must support business to make sure that we keep it going. We've always talked about this role as being a nurturing role, being a serving role, but it's also a business role, and it's never been more business critical for you to understand how to lead in this situation. You need to step up. This lady is Anne Hyatt. She is, or she was, the Chief of Staff at Google. She tells stories quite often about when she went to work for Jeff Bezos, who was her first boss, and the fact that when she was in interview, he said to her, right, Anne, we're going to work out the number of panes of glass that there are in Seattle. And he took the lid off his pen and they went to the whiteboards and they spent an hour working out mathematically how many panes of glass there were in Seattle. She is absolutely of the opinion that these days being an assistant is about problem solving. It's looking at something that seems impossible and working back from that. Isn't that where we're finding ourselves right now? So here is your new normal, I think. So important. You are volunteering for projects right outside of your comfort zone. Really don't be afraid to get things wrong. It's a period where you try and you fail and you adjust, and nobody is going to blame you if you get it wrong. You know, it's got to be fluid because business is going to be fluid for the next few months and we don't know how long it's going to last. Please get over feeling stupid. Don't worry that if you say something, you're going to feel stupid. There is a real value to being the new voice in the room and to finding your voice and to speaking up. Wherever possible, you need to be saying yes. If they're asking you to do something, we've done it for years as assistants, right? You look at what they're asking you to do, you go away and you work out a way to do it. Maybe give the more junior jobs, the more repetitive jobs to somebody less experienced so they can learn and you can step up and make more time for yourself to get on with this more business critical stuff. Develop a healthy disrespect for authority and for the status quo. So if your boss or other management are saying, we're going to do this and you don't think it's the way to do it, please say so, because really you do know better. Stop asking for permission. You're going to just have to get on and do it. It isn't like in the office where you're waiting to be told to do stuff. If you know it's right in your heart, get on and do it. We've talked about this already, but you really need to understand the strategy moving forward and how you can help with that. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You are going to be uncomfortable. Outside your comfort zone right now is where you're going to be most successful. I wouldn't say it's where the magic happens. It's all too serious for that, really. But you are going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable because that's how it's going to be. And you need to be hungry to understand more. Keep asking those questions. Make sure that you're totally understanding how it's working and be vulnerable. Look at the people who you've got around you. Peggy Vasquez always talks about having an inner circle. Who is your inner circle? Who can you bounce ideas off? Who can you have a good rant at? Who can you share a glass of wine with and sit over the internet and just talk through things with if you're having a bad time? Or if you just want to run an idea by somebody, make sure your inner circle is in place. Let's talk a little bit then, just as I round off here, about anxiety and wellness. This is my beautiful extended family, and there isn't one of them that I'm not very worried about in different ways. My dear old mum and dad, who are now nearly in their 80s, both of whom have underlying problems. My husband, who is 70, who has heart problems. My kids, who I'm worried about where we're all going to live. My sister's in America, so, we don't get to see her so often. My cousin's wife is pregnant. The very elderly in our family, we are all worried about how we're going to get through this to a greater or a lesser extent. One thing that we've decided to do is that we are going to set up a Skype meeting once a week for the entire family so that we can all chat and see each other's faces. We went to my parents earlier this week and took shopping for them and left it on the doorstep because they're vulnerable, and they waved at us through the window, and I think that's going to be how it is for a little while. But of course, we're all desperately worried about how this is going to affect us and our families and whether it's all going to be all right. I think there are some really good tips here to get on top of this stuff and to make sure that we're not in a constant state of anxiety. And believe me, over the last week, I've really had my moments, especially with being meant to be moving and, as I say, my husband having his underlying problems and everything else. But I found these things really helpful. So, first of all, create a schedule and stick to it. It gives you a really good framework to keep going back to if you get distracted, and so that at the end of the day, you can say, I achieved something. It isn't all going totally chaotic. Just as you're creating framework for your executives, you need to create a framework for yourself so that you can stick for it. Not too much media, not too much TV, internet, or newspapers. And if you are going to look at that stuff, be careful where you're looking at it. There are some quite dreadful newspapers out there in the world who thrive on scaring people to death. I tend to go to the BBC, well, I would because I'm British, but or CNN or one of the more responsible reporting companies to make sure that I'm getting the proper information. World Health Organization, the people who are authorities. I hate exercise. I really need exercise. If I don't get exercise at the moment, I am going to lose my mind. And so, although I'm indoors most of the time, I have a friend who has a dog. We go out, we walk, usually once every 2 days. We stay 6 foot or 2 meters away from each other, but it means that I'm not losing my mind. Food, food needs colour. If you're eating brown food, it's probably not so good for you. And especially at the moment, with the supermarkets all being bare of food, it tends to be all the processed food. What there's a lot of, a plentiful supply of, is food that is natural. So lots of fruit and vegetables, lots of meat, lots of fish. And if you're wanting to get vitamins to help your immunity against this disease, against this virus, you need vitamin C. So lots of fresh fruit and vegetables. Yes, you can take it in tablet form, but actually the fresh food is far better for you. Maybe it's a time to learn to cook if you don't already, or to teach your kids to cook if they don't know how to. Sleep. I used to think that a really good night was going out with friends and partying. My idea of a great night now is to go to bed early with a really good book. I really need sleep. If you don't get enough sleep, it's torture. You absolutely, if you're anxious, need to try and get sleep. So cut off from the computer at least an hour before you go to bed and give yourself time to wind down. Maybe listen to some music, watch something on TV which isn't all people killing each other, and give yourself, and don't watch the news at that point either. Just give yourself a little time to wind down before you go to sleep. Talk to other people, make appointments. I've done nothing but talk to other people this week, and it's really therapeutic just to talk it through and to come out and realize that everybody's in the same position. I don't know how this is going to shake down in the end, but you know what? We will get through it, and at the other end, we will all come out of it. And I can't wait to see you at numerous events all over the world and to hug you all and to share a glass of wine. So, right now, let's build our networks, let's build our community, let's get online to Facebook or to Skype or whatever it happens to be and talk to each other and advise each other and be kind and help each other. To be honest about how we're feeling, because I think most of us are feeling pretty overwhelmed. If you have family that you're living with, maybe try and do things as a family. We've talked about the possibility of getting some box sets and sitting as a family to watch those. We're getting some board games. We're going to try and sit down to dinner every evening and chat as a family. I think it's really important to keep that communication going and focus on the things you can control, because there's so much right now you can't. Look at the things that you are able to keep control of, because that will stop you feeling quite so anxious. And finally, there, what I would say is to really ask questions and be honest. I've done that so often in the last couple of weeks. I just cancel about £160,000 worth of events. And, people are trying to talk their way round how that will work with the suppliers. And they're getting absolutely nowhere because they're getting grey answers. And I'm being absolutely insistent that I get the actual answer, that I get to the heart of the matter so that I know what I'm dealing with. And then going and researching it. So, for example, I had one hotel who was absolutely phenomenal and just said immediately, we'll move it to sometime next year, come back to a date, just with a date in 6 months if you can. We're not going to charge you anything else. Don't worry about it. I had another hotel who said, here is the contract, this is what you signed up for, we're not going to give you any money back, just get on with it. So I then went away and looked at what my rights were and what happened based on where we are. And actually, I think we're probably going to come to a compromise. But it means I'm not worrying so much. Phone people up, ask the questions. If they're worrying you, make sure you're getting the answers so we absolutely know what we're dealing with. And don't lose your sense of humour. This week I've been really trying on Facebook, as well as putting useful information and training and all that stuff, to put up funny things. And here's just three of them. I love the one particularly of the children all tied up with the mother trying to do the work. And I wish you could have seen some of the other bingo references that were up there. I asked everybody on the Facebook group to say, could they add some? And I think we're at about 163 suggestions, and most of them made me laugh out loud. We need that right now, don't we? And so I guess in summary, then, what I'm really saying is at this point in time, it's more important than ever to be proactive rather than reactive. We can't, in this situation, be waiting for direction and tasks, because it means that we have no influence or input and very little authority. And the businesses can't handle us working from home and working reactively. You have got to be proactive. You've got to be actively contributing to the business partnership, understanding and supporting the business strategy moving forward, and meeting and setting expectations and deadlines. Get that process and procedure put into place so that everybody knows exactly where they are and what they're doing. And here are the two most important questions to ask yourself moving forwards. The first is, how can you take on greater responsibility? That might mean at this point more work, but you know what? I think so many people at this point are going to be laid off. Actually, the ones who are going to stay are going to be the ones that get their heads down and really do the work. So how can you add value and expand the current boundaries of your role so that you're stepping up to leadership in this period of time where the businesses so desperately need you? And finally, I just wanted to offer you some more help. So, tomorrow we will be releasing a free ebook to support this admin chat, which has 10 incredibly useful articles in it. Kathleen Drum has been working very hard to make sure that that is in place so that you can receive it tomorrow. We launched the magazine initially during a downturn because assistants couldn't afford training. So if you are worried about keeping your training up to date, we have a couple of options for you. The first is to subscribe to the magazine. You can do that either as an individual or you can sign up to get it across all your assistants at the business. And that is incredibly cost effective. So if you're interested in that, then please get in touch with me. My email address is there at the bottom and we'll give you some quotes for that. Thirdly, we have had to cancel. Oh, look, I've seen suddenly that I have not put a capital in there in global. We, as a team, because we had to cancel live, decided we were going to do a global event online. So we are in June on the 19th and 20th going to be running a 2-day conference, which currently has over 40 speakers, 40 of the top speakers in the world taking part. So if you want to come on board and be part of the community, we'll be putting together a Facebook group over that weekend so you can network with your peers and with the speakers, and we will be answering questions and you will get over 40 sessions of amazing training from some of the top trainers in the world. And of course, join the Executive Secretary Magazine Facebook or LinkedIn group. We're here totally to support you. Follow me on Twitter or email me if at the end of this you've got questions. I can't tell you how absolutely committed and passionate I am at this point to leading you all if you need it. I am more than happy to answer any questions if you've got. Just write to me, please. It's what I'm here for. So I hope you found that useful. I actually found it really clarifying putting it together for myself. And we will be back every week with more admin chats over this period of time to try and help you to be more effective in your roles. Please, all of you, be safe, be well, and I look forward to seeing you next week.